Jason Macris leading the field up the back straight now. John Paul Drake and Mark Lauke in behind there. We just saw Phil Hughes, last year's winner of this round, spearing off at turn one. And just going up the hill, looks like Sage Murdoch. And coming up the top of the hill into turn one. Was a bit of a battle there, but it is Jason Macris to John Paul Drake, car number one there in Mark Lauke. Nilsson in the Radical.
So Jason Macris leads the way at Sandown. Brilliant start for the two Jam Motorsport Wolf GB08s. He leads his teammate JP Drake. The reigning champion Mark Lauke hanging tough in third place. They've got a comfortable margin now over Simon Haggerty, who's got up to fourth place, the first of the Radicals in the field. Tony Haggerty, his dad, just in behind. The big story, Phil Hughes off the road at turn one. The winner of this round 12 months ago. He is well and truly beached there, and he is not moving, so that will require a safety car to extricate that car from the gravel trap at turn one. Full head of steam barrelling down there. Wasn't sure if there was contact or not on that run into turn one, but he's ended up down there. He's not moving, and we do go safety car. So the race will be neutralised while that Radical SR3, the round winner at Sandown 12 months ago, is recovered from the gravel trap. Pretty frenetic start. The Wolves 1 and 2, but in these dry conditions, Darren Smith, it's going to suit Mark Lauke in that very quick west, which is so good up and down Sandown's long straights.
There's a really big unknown that's going to play out here today, Richard. This is the longer race that we've seen the Australian prototypes running in. There's certainly a whole lot of unknowns that we're actually exploring for the first time with the Australian Prototype Series. It's going to be out of 28 laps. We've got 4 laps in the bag already as we come under control of the BMW Melbourne safety car.
So a restart, we're back underway at Sandown. There's 22 laps to go. It's Jason Macris leading JP Drake and Mark Lauke. The run down this long start-finish straight. The Radicals are squabbling behind them. Dimitri Zardelautis has blazed past Simon Haggerty and grabs third place, fourth place away. But Haggerty fights back down the inside, retakes the spot. So the Radicals are squabbling over the Miners. The top 3 spots locked out, the 2 Wolves, and then the west of Mark Lauke, the defending champion. But good restart from Zardelautis. That car repaired after impact yesterday on the exit of the left-hander at Dandenong Road in those really greasy conditions. Spun the car on the exit of the corner and made frontal contact. But a battle on for the race lead, wheel to wheel. JP Drake round the outside of his teammate Jason Macris. The 2 Wolves wheel to wheel, and there's brilliant corner exit for Drake, and he's gone past as they turn in at turn 6 at the top. The golden black wolf goes in front of the green and black one. Change of the lead.
Gee, you couldn't have written the script for that more perfectly as these 2 Wolves are going for it in front. And I dare say, Mark Lauke's probably just enjoying the spectacle of going on out the front at the moment, because 22 laps remaining. He just needs to stay in touch with them, and I guess with 5 or 6 remaining to start to show the nose of the very brightly coloured west from Lauke Flour Mills as it is. And coming on to the front straight here, certainly the Wolves do have a fair bit more frontal area. They're a bit more harder to push through the air than the West with its very, very low slung rear wing. And the Radicals, of course, sitting up a fair bit higher, but have exceptionally more torque and certainly more weight. The good news is that Phil Hughes has rejoined the field, albeit a lap down for those watching on at home. His kids and wife will be certainly watching on down in the Mornington Peninsula. So just catching up with the Haggerty family here and the Nelson family as well. Oh, and there's Sage Murdoch out on the inside of Dandenong Road, right in front of the flag point.
He's had a shocking weekend, Daz. Really terrible, as we said. Oil pressure issues in his Wolf yesterday. Sidelined that car after just a couple of laps. Didn't do any racing. And switched to the backup west overnight, and still more dramas. And now not taking any further part by the looks of it, with that car pulled off quite safely, it must be said, to the inside. Their driver's left on the Armco, just past or just before the apex of the very tight, very famous left-hand corner.
With all the action that we see down there, that's actually probably a safe haven where he's pulled up there. It's one of the places that not too many cars end up if they're in strife there. One thing that Mark Lauke's got to be very aware of right now is that he's dropping back rapidly off the front of these two. It's now over 4 seconds between himself and those guys, so he can't allow that to ease out too much more before he's well and truly lost contact. In fact, Zardelautis at the moment is starting to range up onto Mark Lauke, so he needs to respond, and he needs to respond right now to the charge with these 2 Wests out in front.
James Winslow doing some driver coaching and some work with Dimitris Adelatis, which is fantastic, and was talking to him yesterday after the crash, said keep your head up, keep working, we'll get the car fixed, we'll send it out for tomorrow, and he certainly did. Now Macris on the attack, right in the slipstream of his exuberant teammate JP Drake as they run up to the top of the hill. Yellow flags flying at the run to Dandy Road, so there'll be no overtaking. You have to be in front before you turn the car into turn 6 if you want to complete a pass there with Sage Murdoch parked on the side of the road. Terrific racing though, wheel-to-wheel stuff for the two Jam Motorsport teammates, and these very cool Honda-powered Wolf GBO8 prototypes.
Hot Wheels car against the Marina Mirage outfit there. The gold and black versus the green and black, and it is looking like it's going to be 20 laps of these two protagonists showing us their wares as they come down the very long straight here. It will be John Paul Drake that just pulls the slightest ever gap there, but under brakes, Jason Macris is absolutely massive. The missile, his fellow competitors called him at Tail and Bend at round 1.
Well, it was his mate JP Drake, who's currently leading him, that called him that. So he dubbed him the missile as he fired up. Having said that, his Instagram account is JMacAttack, so he plays it up as well. And again, another really good run out of turn 4, this long back straight up the road. Drake just positioning his car nicely right in the middle of Sandown Raceway, so there's not quite enough of a wolf-sized gap on the outside there for Macris to go through. Yellow flags have been removed. Now down the inside of Dandenong Road, had a big look. Jason Macris couldn't do it, couldn't get the pass done. Had a big look though, and Drake just firmly shut the door. Great wheel-to-wheel racing.
Satellati's now gone through on Mark Lauke in car number 1, and we've heard some word from down trackside that car number 1 has got an engine miss.
Wheel-to-wheel again, brilliant run out of the final corner. Drake on the outside, terrific scrap. Macris having a look, but Drake must have got the better corner exit because he's just pulled in front of his teammate. This is a great scrap. No, he's got it wrong. Drake locks a brake into turn 1. The right front Kumo grabbed, and Jason Macris goes through. Fantastic scrap.
A wry smile on the face of Jason Macris as he watched his fellow competitor John Paul Drake lock it up. And at the moment, better you than me, buddy.
Sardalatis has gone to 3rd, so that report we heard from pit lane about a potential engine miss on car number 1 seems to be coming true, because Lauke has dropped behind Mitch Nielsen and Simon Haggerty in the pair of radicals as well. The West is straight line speed as its key advantage at a place like this, not showing so much in this one. And it did sound pretty ill as it came past our commentary box. Mark, like you said, in relation to Phil Hughes early on, just needs to circulate, score some points. He proved last year more than anybody that you can come from a long way back and still win the championship.
Yeah, across the Australian motorsport landscape, it was Mark Lauke that came from the furthest back, didn't he? Here we go again. This is the drag race up the straight, the 2 West GBO8 CNs. Macris jumps in behind, I guess trying to force the mistake, and there it was.
Well, it kind of worked. Drake's car, for whatever reason, has got a little bit more straight line speed. It might be a settings decision that they've gone for a little bit more downforce perhaps on that car. So he's better, or a bit less downforce on Drake's car, more on Macris. So Jason not quite as quick in a straight line, but he pulled him behind, and Drake just missed his braking marker perhaps by 10 or 15 metres on the run into turn 1, grabbed the brake, puff of smoke, and just ran wide enough for Macris to go through. So he's got the lead, and the gap now 2 seconds exactly between the two of them. Zardalatis 3rd, Haggerty next, then Nielsen. So V8 Radical leading the 2 SR3s. The SR8 runs much higher weight than the SR3s, just to bring it back with the balance of performance the series runs. So about 830 kilos for the SR8 Radical. The SR3's just over 700, which is where the Wolves run. The Wests, meanwhile, down at 510 kilos. So they're lightweight, nimble little race cars, but they've only got 1,000 cc's to play with. So there's a lot of difference in the way these cars produce their speed. It all works out to pretty close and hard motor racing. Zardalatis doing a really good job in that patched up number 86 car. He's running 3rd. Simon Haggerty with Mitch Nielsen right behind, full of pressure in the great battle for 4th and 5th place.
That's what we're talking about right now, coming down the straight. And gee, the Prototypes really do show up the bumps in the Sandown layout, don't they? They really bobble around on their wheelbase. Makes it a bit tough. This particularly part of the track here, which is like a patchwork quilt, they really do move around and unload the suspension. It can be very, very tricky to try and keep the foot buried in the floor to get through that part of the track.
Drake just slowly, ever so slightly catching his teammate. Sector by sector, 10th by 10th. The gap's come down 1.9, now 1.8. He'll just start reeling him back in. Just needs to be focused and punch out some clean and fast lap times and get back in the toe of the 44 car that leads the race. They've got 13 seconds now over Zardalautis in third, who's still very early in his racing career, but as we said earlier, he's got James Winslow in his corner. Terrific to see James back, by the way, at a racetrack. Massive crash at Abu Dhabi at the end of last year in an LMP3 car. Broke his back, had a whole lot of pain going on there. He's made a great recovery. He's still recovering. There's still work to do, but he's just thrown himself back into work, coaching, driving. He's been driving radicals this weekend as well. Terrific to see. One of the great blokes in the paddock. Passionate about it. Very, very fast racing car driver. So he's been working with Dimitrios and bringing him up to speed. And at the moment, the result is a third place provisionally and the fastest middle sector of anybody in the race so far. So that Equity 1 car going along very nicely.
Dimitri Zardalautis certainly taking full advantage of driver coaching. It's the easiest way to make up time in a race car is to grab a very experienced racer and ask them how to do it. Often there's a little bit of an exchange, a commercial exchange there as well, but what in life it doesn't have a commercial exchange these days. But if you spend a little bit of money on that, you can spend $10,000 on a dyno, another $10,000 when you blow the engine on a dyno. Yeah. If you spend 20% or 5% of that on a bit of driver coaching and get the same amount out of a lap, then it's the cheapest lap time you can possibly ever get in a race car.
The two leaders are exchanging fastest laps. 1 minute 14.70 for Macris last time round. The leader, Drake, 1 minute 14.4, so he's taken another 3/10 out. The gap now down to 1.6. Simon Haggerty's got Mitch Nelson. Zardalautis has dropped some spots. Has he? No, he hasn't. He's back in third. Bit of a timing issue there by the looks of it. The car number 86, he retains in third place. Haggerty and Nelson still having a good scrap. Tony Haggerty running 6. Mark Lauke sounding ill, but continuing on.
It's about 4 seconds off the pace that he was 4.5 seconds he was setting off the pace. So it's an engine problem, that's for sure. It just sounds ill.
Sounds like it's missing. Remember at the Bend Motorsport Park at round 1, he had similar dramas where that car had all kinds of engine issues and zero performance in the first 2 races. They finally got it right for the final race and he got some points and had some decent lap speed, but it's just a matter of accumulating points that weekend.
I tell you what though, with the 1000cc, you lose 1 pot, you're down to 750cc.
It's not a lot, is it?
No, it's not. When you put it in that sort of respect, you're still doing a pretty decent lap time on what's not even a superbike these days. It's 750cc and he's doing okay. And I guess as long as there's no oil alarms on or water alarms, you like to think it might be a plug lead or something like that. Just keep on going, try and get to the end, because to bring it into the pits and pull all the cowlings off and try and get in there and rectify it, you're just not going to get anything out of it. At the moment, he's still in front of Phil Hughes, and both Phil and Mark want to try and drag some points out of this experience, because at the moment, Jason Macris has got a full head of steam, and the car looks $1 million. John Paul Drake's car just looks to me as though it's got a bit of a loose rear guard on the left-hand rear. A bit of diffuser they have behind the rear wheel. Just seems to be bouncing around a little bit there. So it may have broken one of the Zeus clips or fasteners that holds that bit of bodywork on, and that would certainly be playing into it at the really high-speed left-hander at the top of the hill there. We see our race leader come under the Penrite Oils Bridge.
His last lap wasn't very good, JP Drake. He dropped 2 seconds in the final sector, which strikes me as being a Dandenong Road issue somewhere. Maybe getting the thing stopped and turned for the left-hander. Had a bit of a moment, so he's given away a chunk of time, and it's continuing to bleed away in this lap. He's now 4 seconds behind our leader, Jason Macris, 4.6 now. 14.5 for Macris, who's very consistent in front. Drake 15.3, so he's bleeding lap time.
Well, Nielsen looking right wide around the number 5, the Simon Haggerty car now. This will be an exchange at the end of the straight. It'll be side-by-side two identically matched SR3s. And side-by-side past the famous Sandown grandstand.
Oh,
the switch back. He's going to be on the wrong side for turn 2, although he'll have the lead before they even arrive there.
Terrific scrap. So they were wheel-to-wheel going in. Haggerty committed. But Nielsen's pass was nicely judged. Just did the old over-under. Puff of smoke from the right to the left front.
In fact, Haggerty's hurting.
He is. He's limping now. It wasn't when they were dueling. There was no contact either.
No.
But Haggerty just struggling to get out of turn 4, and he's given away a lot of lap time and track position this lap.
I wonder if he's damaged the tyre when he went up over on that ripple strip at turn 1. It wasn't that bad a run, but I guess in these low-slung radicals, if anything, a bit of a hit becomes an issue.
Sandown has set the fastest lap of the race as well, a minute 14.30. So he's getting faster and faster as the race goes on. Drake's back up to speed. He's just had a couple of really ordinary laps. That's allowed the margin to blow out to 5 seconds, but not sure what's going on with that car, but he seems to be back up to speed now, back in the 114s. Sandown 15.1 that lap. Nielsen 15.8, but was in that battle with Simon Haggerty. We're still waiting for Simon to cross the line. In fact, he hasn't. He's just been passed by his dad, Tony, and now heads to pit lane. So car 5 heading to the lane with dramas. 4th early in this one, was running really nicely. He's going to drop another spot, and he'll drop some more actually, because Mark Lauke will go past in the SIC West for 6th place, and Phil Hughes ultimately will do it as well. He's pulled up outside the RA Motorsport squad. They're having a look at that car. Not a lot of alacrity there for the RA Motorsport team having a look at that car. Back to the leaders, 4.9 seconds between Macris and Drake.
It's a strong lead now for Jason Macris. In fact, all the time that Jason Macris has been in the prototype racing and the sports racer era, this is the largest lead he's ever had. In fact, I think this is probably the largest lead that anyone in this racing has had. It's out over 5 seconds now. It's been so close for the last few years, that this style of racing. And certainly huge interest being shown now that they've put the roadmap down, I guess, for what they think the Australian Prototype Series will look like in years to come. Flagging, I guess, an entry of LMP3. Simon Haggerty's out of the HRT car now as well. So
yeah, there wasn't a lot of speed from the mechanics. They weren't throwing themselves at that car to try and get it back on the racetrack. So that's a shame for Simon, who ran 4th early in this race and did a very nice job of it too. Yeah, you're right about the roadmap to the future, and a lot of confidence in where the series is going. The introduction of the CN cars for the first time was a big plus this year, and 3 of them in the country. Of course, we've talked about the dramas teenager Sage Murdoch has had with his car, but the 2 Gem Motorsport cars that are 1st and 2nd in this race at the moment going along very nicely. A lot of development potential in those cars to unlock. They're going to go testing before the next round. They tell me to try and do a little bit of development work on these cars and get them faster, but it's certainly a step forward. In Europe, we've seen CN cars racing with LMP3 cars, so there's certainly lots of pace, and I'm keen to see how they go when they get some more miles under them. It was a big program just to get them into Australia and on the grid before the opening round of the championship. So now they're up and running, they can actually get some miles into them and do some development work. But it'd be nice to see some more of those cars, and who knows what the future holds. Certainly LMP3 in the equation for the category. That's what they've set out, but all sports cars, that's what we want. We want a category in Australia that can lead towards the Asian Le Mans Series, to IMSA in the States, and certainly towards the ultimate race at Le Mans 24 Hour.
There's certainly plenty of avenues for a young racer to try and head off on a professional career, grounding themselves at home in one of these classes if they want to move into some sort of international class, and then it starts to transpire wherever you take it, whatever region in the world. And so news in that Simon Haggerty had a deflating rear tyre, so really no time to jack these cars up and exchange a tyre off the back of that. So taking no further part.
And if it was the right rear, that's the last of what you want at this place. All these left-hand corners, all the weight goes on there. How many right-handers are there on the circuit? 2?
All of them.
Yeah. So it puts all the pressure on that right rear tyre. They cop a pounding here. Bumpy circuit. Is it just me, or are the bumps down on the run into turn 2 worse than they've ever been?
Yeah, they're getting bad.
Yeah.
They're getting bad all the way around the place, and there's absolutely no way that's going to be rectified around here, that's for sure. But what an amazing motorsport asset we've seen here at Sandown for so many years. In fact, a community asset with so many things that go on here. There's caravan shows, there's all sorts of things that go on, trade conferences, lots of different bits and pieces here, but we're having the most important conference of all here this weekend, and that's the Shannons Nationals. This car is currently 5th on the road, Tony Haggerty.
Tell you what, the leaders are still having a fair old crack with 7 laps to go. Macris has just punched out a 14.5. Drake 15.3 gave away some more time that lap, but just a lap before did a 14.3. So his personal best lap of the motor race. There's not much between them in ultimate lap speed, but Macris has got the consistency over JP at the moment.
Just touching on what you were talking about with the future of sports cars, Richard, what's not to love about these things we're looking at? Look at them, they are just a magnificent silhouette of a sports car. Driver on board, maximum concentration. As Mark Lauke's actually checking out his mirrors now, he's down in 6th place, and he's going to go a lap down to the leader, which is, I guess, going to be something that's going to play into prototype racing now that we're going for some of these longer races. Well, certainly not enduros, but certainly longer than the sprints that we've been having.
Even the history of the sport in Australia is pretty rich, and people forget there was an Australian Sports Car Championship, first one in 1969 by Frank Matic. Some of the greats of the sport. John Harvey won a couple of them in the M6B McLaren. Very cool car. Ian Gagan was a winner. Of course, it sort of shifted a little bit towards GT-style cars, but Alan Hamilton in the 934. Alan Jones raced sports car racing in Australia in Porsche in the 80s after his World Championship in Formula One. And
Gary Cooper, Richard, MS7.
Yeah, what a car that was. And then even in the 80s with Chris Clearahan early, Bat Romano, the mighty Kadicha, and then the even mightier Vescander that John Bowe drove in 1986, which is probably the last great sports car designer built in Australia from an endurance sports car racing style of car. Amazing thing, Chevy power, 600, 700 horsepower, Le Mans style looking weapon that thing was. And
it raced here against the best in the world in '84 in the Lucas
WEC.
Yep. It certainly
Porsche's dominated that race meeting, didn't they?
Yep.
Actually, I was speaking to Vern Schupan about that event, Porsche driver at the time, just a couple of weeks ago at the Venn Motorsport Park. Just casually name dropped the winner of the Le Mans 24-hour and Indy 500 Rookie of the Year, Vern Schupan. But lovely guy, very still much involved in the sport, and a quiet sort of role, but follows it very closely. Great bloke, great ambassador for motor racing.
Strange you should name drop him as well, because here at Sandown at the Historics when he was racing his Largo Talbot, we had a quick chat to see how he was enjoying Sandown. He said it's bumpy.
Yeah. Yes, it is. JP Drake's just punched out the fastest lap of the motor race on lap 21. There's no problem with the durability of the Kumho control tyre, is there?
No.
20 laps in of a 3.1k bumpy circuit where we cram 12 corners into 3.1Ks. And 1 minute 14.0 last time round for JP Drake. Good lap. Zadalaudis actually still going quickly too. The SR8, 14.2 last time round. He's 9 seconds behind Drake. So Macris the leader, 5 to go. Drake next, then Zadalaudis. Nielsen 4th, Haggerty 5th, Lauke 6th, and Phil Hughes in 7th. And as we talked about at the top of the race, we'll just score some championship points. And as it stands, after a pretty decent day yesterday where he was 4th in race 1, Macris will win the round with 76 points, but Hughes will walk away with 61 for the weekend. So he's only giving away 15 championship points, despite ending up bunkered in the gravel track for a lap and a half at the start of the race. So that shows the importance of getting to the end. And speaking of the end, Jason Macris has started his final lap of the race. 1 to go for the South Australian, now based on the Gold Coast the Marina Mirage driver in the Wolf GBO8. Marina Mirage, very exciting development up there on the Gold Coast. JP Drake sets another fastest lap of the race, 14.0. It's been a good battle between the teammates. The gap down to 3.5 seconds.
Zardelautis now putting car one a lap down as well, and Mark Lauki's not at all happy with it. He's going to try and go with him, but as much as his will wants him to, the West is not going to take him there at the moment. Well, race leader, Jason Macris from Marina Mirage, comes out of Dandenong Road for the last time in this 27-lap journey.
Winton last year was a breakthrough performance for Jason Macris in the Australian Prototype Championship. A really important weekend, and he's backed it up now. His second round victory and the first for the Wolf GBO8 in Australian competition. Jason Macris is the winner at Sandown. And in a great result for that team, his teammate JP Drake in second. And Dimitrios Zardelautis, the Radical SR8 on the podium. What a terrific performance. Third place, great drive. And he sets his fastest lap of the race on the final lap as well. These cars were just getting faster as the weekend went on. The teammates celebrate. JP as exuberant as ever, punching the air. That'll be like a World Championship victory for JP.
Well, representing Hot Wheels well, isn't he?
Yeah. The gold and black car looks sensational. I really like the Macris reveal as well. It's got the Tequila Patron ESM sort of style green and black livery we see in IMSA racing in the States. So Macris and Drake 1 and 2. Zardelautis was third, his first race podium in the series. Mitch Nielsen fourth, Tony Haggerty fifth, Mark Lauki sixth, with Engine Dramas and Philip Hughes seventh. You feel for Simon Haggerty, he ended up in pit lane with a deflating tyre. Sage Murdoch ended a DNF on the inside of the road at Dandenong Road with mechanical dramas in his west.